Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad.
All right, let's get straight into it. You want to know if Donald Trump is secretly behind Project 2025 and what that could mean for the U.S. economy and finances. Also, Kamala Harris's recent debate remarks have sparked even more curiosity about the project's impact. Let's break it down without the confusion and lay out exactly what this could mean for America's future, with everything from corporate power grabs to economic consequences fully in focus. First, let's talk about what Project 2025 really is. The Heritage Foundation, a major conservative think tank, created this 920-page manifesto. It's designed to reshape the federal government by cutting federal regulations, reducing the size of government agencies, and streamlining power into fewer hands. Basically, it's a bold roadmap for the next Republican presidency to reduce federal spending, shrink the influence of Washington, and give more control to the states. Think of it as a master plan for conservatives to fundamentally alter how America works. Here's where it gets interesting. Donald Trump hasn't officially endorsed Project 2025, but many are speculating that if he returns to the White House, this would be his playbook. Why? Because the policies in Project 2025 line up almost perfectly with what Trump pushed for during his first term, like tax cuts, deregulation, and downsizing government power. It's easy to see why some think Trump could be quietly backing this plan behind the scenes. The entire premise of Project 2025 feels like a continuation of Trump's 2016 promise to drain the swamp by cutting down bureaucratic power in Washington. Whether or not Trump is directly involved, this blueprint would likely be extremely attractive to him and his political allies. Now let's talk about the recent debate between Trump and Vice President Harris, where Harris didn't hold back on Project 2025. She went full throttle, calling it a dangerous blueprint that would lead to a corporate takeover of America's economy. According to Harris, if this plan goes into effect, the federal government would cut programs that everyday Americans rely on, like Social Security, Medicare, and even education funding. In her words, it's a plan that would enrich corporations and the wealthy at the expense of working-class Americans. But is she right? Or is this just political theater? Harris made some solid points, particularly about how the deregulation called for in Project 2025 could hurt the environment, worker rights, and consumer protections. For instance, rolling back environmental regulations would allow big energy companies to increase drilling, mining, and fracking without oversight. Sure, this might boost profits for businesses and lower energy prices in the short term, but it could lead to long-term environmental damage and public health crises. Her concern about income inequality is also valid. Project 2025 suggests cutting taxes on corporations and high-income earners, which would leave less revenue for federal programs that help middle-class and lower-income families. This echoes the Trump tax cuts of 2017, which overwhelmingly benefited the rich. So, Harris is not just spouting fear. These policies, if implemented, could actually exacerbate the wealth gap in America. Let's talk specifics. What would Project 2025 do to the U.S. economy and your finances if it were implemented, especially if Trump is behind it? First off, Project 2025 would double down on tax cuts, particularly for the wealthy and corporations. This follows Trump's 2017 tax cuts, which lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Project 2025 would likely push for even further cuts. While this might stimulate business investment in the short term, it would also lead to less money flowing into federal coffers, forcing cuts to government spending on programs like Social Security, education, and infrastructure. Who benefits from this? Mostly the wealthiest Americans and corporations. And while proponents argue that lower taxes stimulate job creation and boost the economy, the reality is that the middle class and working families may see little benefit. In fact, cuts to federal services could make life harder for millions of Americans who rely on things like student loan assistance or Medicaid. Another big part of Project 2025 is deregulation. The plan seeks to roll back regulations on businesses, giving them more freedom to operate without government oversight. This would include cutting regulations on environmental protection, labor laws, and consumer safety. Sure, deregulation sounds great for big business. Less red tape means they can grow faster and boost their profits. But here's the problem. Without regulations, corporations often prioritize profits over public safety, worker rights, and the environment. Imagine oil companies having free rein to drill wherever they want, with little to no environmental oversight. That could lead to cheaper energy prices, but at what cost? The potential for environmental disasters, higher carbon emissions, and public health issues rises when companies are left unchecked. In the long run, the cost of cleaning up these messes could outweigh the short-term financial gains. One of the most controversial aspects of Project 2025 is its goal to significantly shrink the federal government. This would mean massive cuts to programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Advocates argue that cutting these programs would reduce federal debt and encourage state governments or private sectors to step up. But here's the catch. Privatizing programs like Social Security would likely benefit wealthy individuals who can afford private retirement plans, while leaving working-class and lower-income Americans in the dust. Kamala Harris brought this up during the debate, arguing that this would worsen income inequality and leave millions without the safety net they've come to rely on. Shrinking government programs could also hurt the economy by reducing the purchasing power of seniors, disabled Americans, and lower-income families who depend on federal assistance. In the long run, this could lead to decreased consumer spending, which would hurt businesses and stall economic growth. Another angle that doesn't get talked about enough is the global economic impact of Project 2025. One thing Trump was known for during his presidency was his trade wars, especially with China. Project 2025's focus on deregulation and shrinking the government's role could also mean a return to protectionist policies and tariffs. Now, protectionism might sound good to industries like manufacturing and agriculture, but it could also hurt international trade. If the U.S. isolates itself from global markets through higher tariffs, American companies that rely on exports could suffer. Plus, higher tariffs on imported goods could drive up prices for U.S. consumers, contributing to inflation. On top of that, the potential rollback of environmental protections could isolate the U.S. from global climate agreements. This could lead to economic sanctions from other countries or even a loss of foreign investments, as investors move their money to countries with more sustainable practices. Let's address the big question. Is Trump really behind Project 2025? While Trump hasn't come out and said, "I'm behind this," the fact that the policies in Project 2025 align so closely with his America First agenda can't be ignored. Whether he's officially involved or not, it's clear that this plan would appeal to him. And if he wins the presidency again in 2024, we could very well see Project 2025 serve as the roadmap for his administration. At the same time, this could just be a conservative playbook that would work under any Republican president. But with Trump's populist base and his history of disrupting the status quo, it's easy to imagine him championing this plan if given the chance. What does it all mean for the U.S.? Project 2025 could fundamentally reshape the U.S. economy, while it promises tax cuts and deregulation that might boost corporate profits. The long-term risks include growing income inequality, the dismantling of social programs, and potential environmental damage. Kamala Harris's debate points highlighted these risks and painted a grim picture of what could happen if these policies are implemented. Whether or not Trump is directly behind Project 2025, one thing is clear. If this plan goes into effect, it could lead to a radically different America. One that works for the wealthy and corporations but leaves everyday Americans struggling to keep up. Now it's your turn. What's your take on Project 2025? Is it a bold path to economic prosperity or a corporate power grab in disguise? Do you think Trump is behind it, or is Kamala Harris right in her warnings? And if you're curious about what we can most likely expect in 2025, watch this next video.